This is Luke Iorio, and here's this week's Meaningful Moment. So for those of you that have been following the Meaningful Way podcast for a while, one of the things that you may have seen was that we were doing Meaningful Moments. Meaningful Moments were really just meant to be a couple of quick drop-ins, some thoughts for you throughout the course of your week to really see how you could bring a lot more meaning into your life and into your everyday experience. And so we were doing those for a while. We actually got a very good response. And we took a brief little hiatus just because we wanted to change up the format a little bit, which is what led to this, okay? And so from time to time, probably more often than not, we will be broadcasting the Meaningful Moments right here through the Facebook feed, as well as redistributing through the podcast line in case you are subscribed either through iTunes or Stitcher or what have you. And so with that in mind, I guess now is the time for us to start talking about and sharing what is this week's meaningful moment. So I guess really the place that I wanted to begin is actually quite literally talking about meaningful moments. And you see where this comes from is that very recently, whether it be in conversations that I've had with some of my clients, some of my students, colleagues, and just individuals that I know throughout all different aspects of my personal and professional life, the topic that comes up so often is purpose. It seems that there's a lot of individuals that are out there that are going back and forth between saying, hey, do I really fit in where I'm at? Do I feel a sense of belonging for wherever it is, whatever it is that I'm a part of? Do I feel like I've really intentionally created and taken the steps to live into what I feel is a purpose within my life? Or what I'm hearing more often is that people feel like maybe they got swept up along the way, meaning that based on the responsibilities that we have, based on the choices that we were making, we started to drift or to wander into a certain direction only to later on discover this isn't really in alignment with where I want to be. And I think that's another thing that I hear a lot of is that maybe people made choices for themselves earlier on in life, earlier on in their career, and that was the best choice that they could be making for themselves at that moment in time. But it no longer works for them. They find themselves in a really different place now. And so they begin to investigate, hey, wait a minute, what maybe really is my purpose? Well, I want to break it down in maybe a simpler way, because sometimes the big topic of, I've got to find my purpose can be a little bit daunting. And frankly, in trying to figure out too much too quick, if you're not quite ready for that, if you're just beginning the conversation, you don't tend to really sink into it deeply the way that it's going to enable a very successful, meaningful transition to whatever that purpose may be. And so what I wanted to start with is an example that comes up quite often actually in coaching, and specifically in career coaching, where individuals find themselves in a position where they may want to change jobs. Maybe it's just a different organization they want to work for, maybe a different career path. Maybe they even want to start their own business. And when you work with somebody in career transition and do some career coaching, part of what you do with them may seem a bit different than you would expect. You see, the first thing to do with career coaching with somebody in that type of situation is actually to help them get more comfortable and more at peace with the situation that they're already in. Meaning you don't want them jumping too quickly into the next thing, because it's like the old saying, wherever you go, there you are. It may be that you begin to shift and look for the next thing, look for the next set of circumstances that you think are going to bring you happiness, that you think are going to bring you purpose or meaning. And you end up shifting into a different place. And all that you do is bring some of the issues, some of the challenges, some of your own blocks that you may have into that new situation. You haven't really prepared yourself for that switch. And so what you normally are going to go into to really help somebody understand where they are before they go into a major transition or before they make the leap into that transition is a few things. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Because really what it begins with is a process of self-inquiry. And so I want to share with you a little of how you can ask yourself some questions and guide yourself through a process that allows you to bring some of what is most important to you to the surface so that you can see it more clearly and begin to know and line up your decisions in a manner that are much more likely to align to the type of purpose, the type of meaningful career path, relationships, meaningful life that you may want to have. So for self-inquiry, first couple of things. Number one is that it's really important to know that whatever the results are in our life, whatever it is that we're experiencing at any given time, a lot of that is related to the way in which we act, meaning the way in which we show up, the behaviors that we have within our lives. And yet those behaviors, those habits, those patterns that we have come from the way that we feel about any given circumstance that is going on at this moment. It's our feelings, it's our emotions that ultimately guide what type of and the quality of the actions and behaviors that we take on. But then even behind that is that those emotions, those feelings get created by the thoughts that we have, meaning the thoughts control the way that we perceive the world, and based off of those perceptions, we feel a certain thing, we do a certain thing. And so it's very important to break down a little bit of this process to recognize that whenever you have a result in your life, you want to begin to work backwards and say, what might be some of the actions that I'm taking that are leading to some of this? What are some of the feelings, the emotions that are leading to those actions? And what might be some of the thoughts, some of the beliefs that are way back at the very beginning of this that is actually creating this kind of chain reaction that's going on? Well, it's really at that level of thought, that level of consciousness, level of awareness that you want to ultimately guide a lot of your self-inquiry. Because the more that you understand where your thoughts and where your beliefs come from, the more powerful the changes you make ultimately will be, because you change a belief and it will ripple through all the different aspects of who you are and the way in which you're showing up in your life, the type of actions that you're taking, the type of results that you're getting. And so I wanted to then give you some questions that you could be thinking about that really help you reflect on what's most important in your life, so that you can begin to see what are the beliefs that really lead you to build a life that is built out of these things that are most significant, most important to you. And where is it that you may be making choices that are leading you away from what matters most to you? The key, though, is you got to know what matters most to you first, so that you can begin to navigate through some of those choices, some of those situations as they come up. So a couple of things. Certainly, you can begin just with the big, broad question of what is important in your life. And you can walk through the different areas of your life. What is important to you in your life could be around your relationships. It could be around your health. It could be around your overall well-being. So not just your physical well-being, but your emotional, mental, spiritual well-being. It could be the type of work that you do. It could be the way in which you feel like you contribute. It could be around any number of things. What is it? It could be experiences that you really enjoy most, and think about who's involved and what is involved within those experiences that are so rewarding and so significant, so important to you. So you can start with that very much couple of broad questions, such as what is most important to you in your life. You can think about, what do you enjoy most? Right? What are the moments of life that you feel like you can get totally lost in and enjoy yourself? And once you identify those, ask some of the questions I just rattled off a moment ago, which is, so when I enjoy this, when I'm in those moments, what's really going on? Who am I at those moments? What am I connecting to? What is it about the relationships or the other people that are involved in those experiences and that enjoyment and excitement? What is it that really kind of gets the juices flowing and that flow of life going? What is it maybe in terms of what you enjoy most about the work that you do? What are the areas of your work that really light you up, that excite you, that you feel are part of expressing who you are and the natural strengths and talents that you may have? So you want to reflect on what is it that you enjoy most as well. When you start to look at what's most important in your life, when you look at what you enjoy most in life, you can then start to ask yourself, what are your values? It's one of the things we don't get into too often, is really diving much more deeply in terms of what are the values that we have within our life? How do we lead our life according to what we value most? And so consider what your values are, and consider what's truly underneath them. I'll give you an example. Certainly one of the values that I've shared for a long time is this idea that I very much value family. I value that close relationship that I have, and they are very, very important to me. They're the most important thing to me in my life. But what's in it underneath family, what that represents to me, is that it represents deep connection, because family isn't important to me out of some responsibility or obligation. Responsibility may be true, but that's not why it's significant to me. It's important to me because of the connection that it provides me, the connection that I get to have, whether it be with my wife, whether it be with my kids, and then that ripples through to all of the different types of relationships that I have. It's the deeper connection that I have within those relationships that is most important to me. When relationships don't have a deeper connection, those are relationships that aren't as important to me. So it's not just relationship. It's not just friendship. It's not just family, but it's the deep connection that I associate those things with. So the real value for me is around connection. I've got other values around contribution and around freedom. That idea of freedom, though, is not a circumstantial one of doing what I want, when I want, with whom I want. That actually used to be true for me. But for me, that idea of freedom is actually much more about that independence of being free within, of being free from some of the limitations and some of the patterns, some of the conditioning that we have, so that I can be much freer to fully express myself, much freer to grow and to step into and live towards my potential every single day. And so those are some of my values. But I'm encouraging you to take a look at what are your values. What is it that you value most in this life? Because what you're going to see is that in terms of what's most important to you in your life, what you enjoy most, those are things that are going to be representative of the values that you truly have. And many times the decisions that we make and the things that we end up doing, whether it be career paths or jobs or even relationships, many of those types of things are strategies that we believe will fulfill the values that we have. And I want you to be much more conscious about what those true values are so that you can decide what are the things that are lining up for you. What are the things that really, truly connect to the values that you have and the things that are most important to you. So other ways of getting much more specific on this, okay? So as opposed to just leaving it at some of these big, broad questions, I've got some sentences that you can complete that will help you, again, begin to recognize what might be some of the patterns, what are some of the themes that are cutting across all these things that are really, truly important to you. Let's begin with this. What are 3 things that you value most about personal relationships? So what are 3 things that you value most about personal relationships? You can also ask that as what are 3 things that you value most about professional relationships as well? So what is it? It's not just the relationship, as I was just talking about. What is it about those relationships that you really, truly value and appreciate? You can look at what are 3 things that you value most about your work. Now for this, if you may not be in the happiest time of your career, one of the things you can take a look at is think of a time when things were really coming together for you at work. Maybe it was a given project, a particular activity, an area that you know you had a strength in, something you just really, truly were engaged in, not just enthusiastic about, not just enjoyed, but you were engaged. You felt yourself committed to whatever that particular activity or project happened to be at that moment. And when you can picture that, think about some of the questions I was rattling before of what did that project represent to you? What was it about that type of work that you really thoroughly got engaged in, that you found important? What about that work felt great to you and that felt like it really drew you into the flow of getting things done? So you want to continue to look deeper behind each of these kind of sentences and questions that we keep throwing out there. You can also look at what are 3 ways you most enjoy or would like to contribute. So 3 ways you most enjoy or 3 ways that you would most like to contribute to your work, to your family, to your community, to your school, to whatever it is, whatever the groups are that are most important to you. How do you want to contribute? What do you enjoy most about those types of connections, those types of groups that you belong to in some manner? That'll also highlight to you the way in which you may want to play within this world. You can just take a look at what are 3 things that you would love to experience in life. And you may mention, for instance, something I absolutely love is the idea of travel. That's something that I want to experience, traveling to certain places and having certain experiences. And I ask myself then, what is it about that? What is it that type of travel, that type of experience represents to me? Because that's what I'm really after. And for me, it's a part of its variety, part of its adventure, part of its curiosity and learning new things. And so know that when you list out what are some of these experiences you want to have in life, ask yourself, what is that about? What does that experience really represent? Because that's what's going to get underneath to help you understand what is really truly important to you about that thing, about that experience. And so you can come up with more lists like this. You can come up with the 3 things for this, the 3 things for that, and just see what is it that really kind of draws you in, that most excites you about some of the lists that pull together. Because then what you get to do is that as you have these different lists together, now what you want to take a look at are what are the patterns? Meaning that as you look across all of these different answers, if you journal on these topics and you write out a lot of things, or even if you just talk it out with a friend or even on a video, something like this, right? If you do that, you want to then be able to consider for yourself, what's the pattern? What's the theme? What's the real messages that are underneath here that are most important to me? What is it that all of these different areas that feel like they're the most engaging or most important, what do they allow you to express? What do they allow you to contribute? What do they allow you to give? And you'll begin to see that there are some patterns there, so that when you begin to ask yourself the question of what matters most to you, what is it that matters most to you in life? What matters most to you within your work? You'll start to see how these themes are present or not. And that's going to allow you to really understand what is it that you are truly looking for, so that if you do launch into some type of a transition, you're going to really begin to understand what that transition is about, and you're going to be clearer on where you ultimately want to lead yourself. And I think that's the thing about purpose, is that purpose is something that for some is almost like a lifelong mission. I would say for most, it is an evolutionary process that we go through. And so I really honestly like to plan in terms of purpose of how it is that I want to play in the world, the difference that I want to make. I do look at that certainly on a long-term basis, but I also look at it in 1, 3, and 5-year increments, and look at, okay, what's the purpose now? What is the purpose that I'm trying to have? What's the difference that I'm trying to make? How is it that I can incorporate the things that are most important to me into this life and into my work, and arrange things around them? And you do it in increments until ultimately you find a bigger theme that may emerge that really allows you to say, hey, you know what? This is it. This is the one that I truly want to stick with. So I guess the last thing that I'll leave you with, because we're going to explore this more in the coming weeks, is that we talked a lot about purpose. We talked about the meaningfulness that is behind all of these different questions and areas of your life that I had to share with you this week and take you through. And at the same time, what I want you to connect it to is also just that idea of meaningful moments, meaning that as you begin to recognize what it is that excites you the most, what it is that's most meaningful, what matters most to you, we're presented with countless moments every single day in terms of the way we interact with others, the way we interact with ourselves, the different situations that we go through. And so those moments are presented as opportunities, as possibilities. And so many of us let those moments go by just by default. We don't even see them coming. We don't realize that these moments are presented to us all day long. And yet, every interaction, every encounter, every even dialogue you launch into with yourself is preparing you and presenting you with a question of how do you want to make this moment meaningful? And that's a topic that we'll explore in the weeks to come. So with that, I hope you like the new format. I hope you enjoy this. And I'd love to continue to get your comments and questions on meaningful moments. So do me a favor, go ahead and share them right here online. And if there are some things that you would love us to explore on the meaningful moments going forward, do me a favor and please go ahead and leave those in the comments as well. Thanks for dropping in.